Welcome to Based On, an adaptation podcast. I'm Pamela Portnoy. My guest today is my friend, Matt Mancuso. He is an actor, singer, dancer, you name it, he does it. We'll be talking about season 1 of the Magicians TV series, created by Sera and John McNamara, which is, of course, based on the novel by Lev Grossman. Just a fair warning, there will be spoilers. Hi, Matt.
Hi, Pam. How are you?
Good. Thank you for asking. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm excited to do this. Thank you for asking me. I love The Magicians, the book series, a lot. So this was fun to kind of dive into because I had never watched the show. So
I had never watched the show either. And you actually gifted me this book several years ago for my birthday.
I completely forgot that.
This is why I picked it for you.
Well, then I'm happy for my forethought. I guess hindsight was 2020 this time.
Very good. So before we dive into what I'm sure is going to be a lengthy conversation because there's so much to discuss, we're going to do our rapid fire quiz.
Okay.
Stretch it out. Flex it out. Prepare your body.
I got to stretch my mind. Let's roll the temples. Here we go. All right.
All right. Are you ready to adapt?
I am ready to adapt.
Excellent. Question 1. Book before movie or movie before book?
Book before movie.
Excellent. Happy ending or shocking twist?
Happy ending.
Nice. I think you're my first person who said that. Okay, good. Most devastating book death?
Hedwig.
Oh, did you see that because you see the mug that I'm drinking out of right now?
No, I mean, there's a couple because I was just thinking about some of the things that we've seen. I mean, I saw that earlier and I was like, oh, it's Hedwig. But I remember reading Deathly Hallows and having Hedwig die that quickly killed me. Because
quickly, heroically, it was gut-wrenching.
It was because, Hedwig was like, it was his familiar and she was there and, it was always there. And she did it very heroically, but I think it was also because it was so early on in the book. Because, Harry Potter started as like a children's series, and eventually, and as I say, the brilliance of the writing of it is that it grew with its audience. So as the children who first read the first book, the structure of it and as Harry grew and everyone who was reading it grew, so it kind of did the writing and the stakes. So when Hedwig died, like right in the front, it was kind of like, it's like, oh, okay, we know what we're in for.
Yeah, we're like, strap in, get ready.
Yeah, I think the other one that I thought of, it's another series that I think you've read it, or, well, our friend Jackson and I have read it, in the Red Rising series.
I read the first of the Red Rising.
Okay, so then I don't want to spoil this for you, but I'm...
Go for it. There's spoilers. I'm not immune to
so there's
on the show.
Jackson will appreciate this, but... my favorite character, and still to this day, even in the continuation of the second trilogy, my favorite character dies in the third book of the first trilogy. And I remember putting it down. I put the book down, I put it off to the side, and I texted Jackson and said, Severo's dead. I'm going to take a few.
Get me away.
And I was just like, I can't. No, I'm not. No. So, but then of course, that funny part is that Severo actually doesn't die. It was a fake death. And I was like, oh my God. But I remember reading that. I put the book down. I went, I think I actually took like a day off. Like I was like, I can't read this anymore. I just, I was like, I can't. And came
what
back.
Did he say? Like, calm down, keep reading.
No, he didn't even say that. He's just like, I understand.
He was probably laughing his ass off.
Oh, I'm sure he was. But I was like, also because the grandiosity of my reaction was probably way too much. But I was like, I just, I was very sad.
Totally.
Yeah.
Several always reminded me of just because of the name, it reminded me of Severus.
Oh,
It would
yeah.
throw me off all the time when I was reading that.
Oh, yeah. And talk about another death. Oh,
That's my answer for this question is Snape.
yeah. I think what makes the death so much more palpable is the chapter that happens right after it, is because we learn of the whole
thing.
The whole thing. And reading that chapter, you're just like, oh, God,
I'm just going to see myself out.
It's like the world just turned upside down, to quote Lin-Manuel Miranda. I mean, like, the world just, like, okay, I'm just, no.
You're like reliving it right now. Good. Shall we continue with the very rapid fire?
Yeah.
Okay. Favorite fictional couple?
Oh, okay. This is it's based on it's changed many times, but the one I'll say today is there's this very small book by Nick Hornby, and I'm looking at the title right now. The English screenwriter and novelist. It's called The State of the Union.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a depiction of this marriage in crisis in 10 very small chapters about them figuring out. And the reason I like them is because it was made into a short web series starring Chris O'Dowd and Rosamund Pike.
I love them both.
And playing these characters. It's 10 short episodes, like I think 8 to 12 minutes long episodes. So it was like a short miniseries. They were both nominated for Emmys for their performances. And I just thought it was a good depiction of a marriage in crisis, but also figuring it out.
So you liked how realistic it was, and you saw their flaws and their triumphs.
Yeah, and it felt real in that, it wasn't a romantic type. It was romantic, like they loved each other, but it wasn't that overly romanticized type of, that we've seen in other books, which you love at the same time. I'm a huge rom-com fan, and I thought about this question when you sent it to me. I was like, who is it? And then the only other people that I thought of was maybe Fleabag and the priest from Fleabag. I
haven't seen it.
Well, please do. I have a friend of mine. We use this as a shorthand between us when she's talking to me. When she was talking to me about guys she's dating, I was like, "You just haven't met your priest yet." She's like, "It's true."
That's such an interesting way of putting it.
Yeah.
I mean, I was thinking about this question with Quentin and Alice, and I was really struggling with Quentin and Alice.
I like them, and I have thoughts. It's definitely not. I wouldn't say that they're the greatest love story. And I also know how the book series ends. I wouldn't say that they're the greatest love story. I can see why it's very important. And that's why I have thoughts about how they depicted it in the television series. So yeah, the Quentin and Alice, I'm on board for most of it, but then
he frustrates me so much.
Oh, just wait. We're going to have some conversations.
Oh my God. I just can't with them. Okay. With him in particular.
Yeah.
Favorite film adaptation?
The Reader.
Ooh, great. That's really good. Okay. Mm-hmm. Least favorite film adaptation?
Watchmen, not the television series, the movie.
The movie.
And another one that I didn't like, and I liked the book a lot because I also read this. I read this at the same time that I was reading with another friend of mine. He actually told me to read it. The Girl on the Train.
That's really funny. You're the second person who said they didn't like that adaptation.
I loved Emily Blunt.
Yeah.
And Emily Blunt is absolutely fantastic.
Yes.
In everything.
Yes.
I would chop off my leg to see her do a stage performance because she's just so good that, she's working in film all the time. But I would chop off my leg to go see her do a stage performance. I'd give it away. I'd say, here you go. Attach it to somebody else who needs it. It's fine.
Here you go.
But I think The Girl on the Train was written, like they say, after the post Gone Girl. The movie, the book was written, Gone Girl, and Girl on the Train kind of followed fairly soon after Gone Girl. And it was, again, that kind of suspense thriller.
Right.
I just didn't feel, because then my friend and I, who both read it at the same time, we both went to go see the movie, and the suspense kind of wasn't there. Aside from, it was a conversation on mental health at the same time, but it's kind of like, you didn't feel that kind of.
But you were tense while reading it.
Oh yeah, I remember reading the book, going, I don't know what the hell is happening, but because it didn't have a twist too much like Gone Girl's twist. Like, if for those of you who've read the book Gone Girl, halfway through the book, you're like, oh, what the fuck?
I know.
Sorry if cursing, but anyway.
No, it's me. No, we're fine.
but I remember reading Gone Girl, thinking, oh my God, it was already good. The first half of the book of Gone Girl was so good, and then when you get to the middle of it, you just kind of go. And The Girl on the Train didn't have that twist in the middle, but the adaptation just wasn't good. But also Watchmen, because I love the graphic novel. Love the graphic novel. And I just thought I know they adapted it, some of the things for screen. I actually thought the casting was pretty okay for most of it. I mean, Jackie Earle Haley as Rorschach was an inspired choice for that movie. But yeah, it's just the adaptation just kind of fell short, again, of the tension that's in the graphic novel. Like, you're reading the graphic novel and you can't put it down.
Totally.
And there's layers to it, and just felt like that kind of didn't happen in the movie. In the TV series that they did this year with the great Regina King, holy crap.
So good.
Edge of your seat the entire time. And Regina King, I've loved Regina King for years, and I'm just happy. I'm just happy she's getting so much of what she deserves right now. Just so much. And the entire cast, Hong Chow again. Too many people talk about from that television series. Too many people. I'll be here for days. We can't be here for days. Anyway.
I love it. Okay. Favorite actor?
If we're going male, it will always be Robin Williams until I die.
Yeah.
If we're doing female, it will always be Audra McDonald until I die.
Okay. Very good. Yeah. I love that Robin Williams choice. I think I knew the Audrey McDonald part, but fabulous. Favorite fandom?
God. X-Men or Harry Potter, specifically X-Men.
Really?
Yeah. Not just.
I could have sworn you'd be just Harry Potter.
Oh, I'm a huge.
I didn't know you were that into X-Men.
Oh God. I have said this since I discovered what X-Men was, that I can't wait to die. And I'm going to go straight up to the big guy up there and go, all right, so you're going to send me back down as the first mutant. Let's get this going.
Oh, wow. I learned something new every day. Wow. Yep. Okay. Mm-hmm. If you could have drinks with any author, dead or alive, who would it be and why?
Okay, two popped into my head, and I don't even know why, but maybe I'll figure it out. Charles Dickens.
Okay.
What
would you be drinking with him?
Tea with whiskey, probably. I'd be like
a hot toddy.
Let's do some hot toddies. I mean, you're British, so you like some tea. Only just, to pick his brain. I think he was very connected to a lot of different things happening at that time in his era, and plus he was a character on a Doctor Who episode, so that's probably why it popped into my head. And I would have to ask how he would end The Mystery of Edwin Drood, just to ask. Okay. Even though I haven't read it, but
I love that you know what questions you'd come equipped with to this tea.
Yeah, I'd be like, let's just talk, dude. Let's have fun. Also because he became a character in a show that I wrote a long time ago, like a television show. He was a character that I wrote, and he was going to be a malevolent character. So it would be interesting to talk to the real guy. But then the other thing I thought about was probably, other male would be I don't know why I thought of J.D. Salinger.
Oh, interesting.
Because he's not someone that I love Catcher in the Rye, and we'll bring that we'll circle back to that when we start talking about the magicians. But yeah. Catcher in the Rye, I remember, was the first book. I said it's the first book I remember reading when I was a kid, when I was younger, not a kid, teenage, that I liked. Because I didn't like reading when I was younger. And I just remember reading Catcher in the Rye going, there's something about this book. And I kept going. I was like, and I guess it was because maybe there was this encapsulation of what it felt like to be a teenager at the time. And you're kind of like, yeah, still feels that way.
Yeah.
Doesn't go away. So it'd be interesting just to see who he is, because the rest of his stuff, I don't know. And the way he lived his life is not something that I was like, oh, that's the way I live mine. I was like, no, it's not that. But it'd be interesting, again, an interesting character. And then probably also Phoebe Waller-Bridge from Fleabag, because I think she's brilliant.
Love that.
Her mind is a treasure trove.
Now, can I ask you something?
Yeah.
Would J.D. Salinger be your favorite author with the name J.D.?
No. No. No.
No.
No.
Me neither.
I mean, but I've sat down with that JD many times, and I've had many discussions with
I've had many whiskeys with JD Palmer.
Oh yes, JD Palmer. I mean, we were talking about his current book, which I'm not going to talk about that right now.
But talk about it. But I'm so fucking excited for when that gets published, because we're going to have to talk about that.
I already asked him. I said, so what are we supposed to call your fanboys? Because I'm already predicting fanboys. We got to give them a name.
Yeah.
You know, and he already told me what they're going to be called. And I said, that's perfect. So we have to make that happen. But I'm
very excited.
We had a whiskey conversation early. We hadn't talked. So we got on like Zoom or whatever. It was like, he asked me, is it too early for whiskey? And I was like, it's 1 o'clock here. For you, it's 11. So you tell me. I was like, it doesn't matter for me. So
that's like, amazing. We had a dram the other night via Skype, and we were drinking an Irish whiskey called Writer's Tears.
Oh yes.
Have you tried it? It's so good. It's so good.
Oh, that was I remember seeing that bottle, because it was at Grain in Playa.
In Playa, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah,
if you see it again, give it a whirl. It's really good.
I will. Well, I told him last night, I texted him, I was at the liquor store and there was a bottle of 25-year Lefroy. And I just texted him and I said, this is our goal. In years from now, we will be somewhere and one of us will bring a bottle of 25-year Lefroy and we're just going to sit and drink it.
Yeah.
I was like, but that's the goal. I was like, we have to have that.
Yeah. That sounds so good. Smoky, I bet.
Oh, I bet. And apparently I read about it. It's supposed to have some caramel taste in there too, which I was like, I'm good with that.
I'll do it. I'll drink it.
Yeah.
Just make me. It's fine.
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay, we're almost there. I think we have one more on the rapid fire, and then we can actually get to talking about this.
All right.
Okay. Favorite book or film quote?
Every single time I think about this, and it's the only thing that pops into my head. And I quote a lot of stuff, but this is the only one it's Robin Williams saying hello in Mrs. Doubtfire.
Hello!
Every single time. Every single time. And I was like, I wish I could come up with something more dramatic or something, but I was like, it was either that or this line that I love from Aladdin. And I'm sure, I don't know if he wrote it or if someone else wrote it, but it was the line that he says, cantaloupe, but all honeydew. And why
when is that? Is that in a song that he's singing?
Nope. It is a throwaway line that I don't know why, because I'm obsessed. I was obsessed with Robin Williams as a kid. It's why I became an actor. And
I loved him too.
It was a throwaway line because you probably shouldn't remember it, but I did. And they were in the desert. It was right after they got out of the Cave of Wonders and they're in the desert and they're talking about marriage or whatever. I'm pretty sure it was in the desert. But he says cantaloupe, but all honeydew. And while he does that, he holds up a cantaloupe. The genie holds up a cantaloupe and then holds up. I
think we remember this.
And then he holds up a honeydew. But now, as a kid, you just go, he's holding up a fruit. He's holding up a fruit. But then when you're an adult and you realize he's saying can't elope, but honeydew, you're like, oh God. You see the girl?
Oh, that's so clever.
And I'm just going, it has to be him. It has to have been him. If
so much of that film was him. Like,
Yeah.
I know they just let him go
There's the,
when they were recording that.
I have like they when they re-released the DVD, they have all that footage of him just in the recording sessions, just going to town. So, and they put that as like an extra on the DVD. So I've got all this footage of him just going to town, and I'm just like, this is priceless for anybody.
Oh, I really want to see that. I wonder if they have that on YouTube. I'll have to find out.
Oh, I'm sure they have it on YouTube now, but it's priceless. The man's brain. It's another one of those things. I enjoy watching people's brains just kind of jump and see what happens.
Totally. I very much loved him, and I was obsessed with his stand-up. And in addition to like his brilliant acting, that was honestly one of the first times that an actor celebrity had died, and I was really profoundly affected. I think I cried for like a while because I remember the day it happened. I was driving to Irvine to visit someone, and I was listening to the stand-up the entire way. And then I pull over to get I pick up like a bottle of water or something from the convenience store, grocery store. And I turn on the news, and they were talking about what happened. And I was like gutted.
Yep.
He was such an incredible talent.
I remember similarly, I was at work, and an ex-friend of mine now, at the time she was my friend, but an ex-friend now, I was at work and I was out in the parking lot talking to someone, and my friend was in the studio practicing, and she came out and said, "Matt, I have some bad news." And I'm thinking, what bad news could she tell me? And then she says, Robin Williams died. And time froze. I stopped. And I didn't know how to process it.
Yeah.
And I remember calling my mother going, I feel empty right now.
Yeah.
I couldn't even like cry. I just remember going, I feel empty. And she's like, well, he was very important to you. I was like, I don't even think I realized how important he was until that moment.
Such a formative part of our childhoods, I think.
Yep.
I became even more appreciative as I grew.
Yeah, I've seen documentaries. I haven't read the book yet, but like I've seen documentaries. My parents gave me this DVD as so much of his work, all these DVDs of so much of his work that I just haven't watched yet because I said, if I go into this, I was like, I'm not going to come out for like days. And yeah. I probably should do it during this time that we're in, but I like it because it's his stand-up. I
don't know, because it's such a heavy time already.
I know. I was like, I don't know if I'm going to, but and just to hear like people, so many of the actors that he worked with talk about him and talk about him with such reverence and such joy. And I think it was just great to have had someone like him working in the industry, even if we lost him, too early, just to have been a part of it, and that we can remember it. Like you said, he was formative for us when we were kids because he was working so much. He did so many things. I remember Aladdin, Fern Gully, Mrs. Doubtfire,
As a Dead Man,
Jumanji. I mean, Flubber. I was just thinking that Flubber. I mean, Flubber is not that good of a movie, but he's great.
He's good at everything. I literally just watched Good Will Hunting a couple weeks ago, and oh my god, I can't.
Dead Poet Society. I mean,
Dead Poet Society is. It's so epic.
You're just like, dude, I kept going, God, I wish I could have had you as a teacher.
It really speaks to like how much like art really seeps into your soul.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. So Robin, if you hear us, we love you and we miss you. Mwah.
We do. Oh, that was heavy, but okay, we did it. We made it through.
Woo!
Excellent.
Okay.
Let's get into this, Matt.
All right.
So, tell us a little bit about your experience with The Magicians. And just, I know I mentioned this earlier to our listeners. We are covering, just to be specific, we are covering the first Magician's book of the series by Lev Grossman, and we're going to only be talking about season 1 of the TV series. Just to be clear, because this is actually the first TV show I'm tackling on the show.
Oh, wow.
So usually we do movies, and I don't really have to be specific, but specifically season 1, book 1.
So my history with Magicians, I picked up this book in 2009 when it first came out. I remember because I was working for As the World Turns, that old chestnut of a soap opera. I was working for As the World Turns, and I happened to have read back. This is back when people got magazines. I remember reading the review for it in Entertainment Weekly, and I went, "Ooh, this sounds interesting." Because I was still kind of in my Harry Potter fix that I need to have magic. But I didn't want to reread all of Harry Potter at that time, which I've done now numerous times. But so I went and picked it up, and I remember really enjoying it because it was different than Harry Potter.
I don't want to say it's adult Harry Potter, but if you want to summarize it to someone that hasn't really been that passionate about either series, that's kind of how you introduce it.
Yeah, I mean, yes, that's exactly what I used to say to people. That I was like, it's a more adult version of Harry Potter. Because, they're talking about sex. They're talking about all these hormones and stuff like that, which...
They're at a magic school.
They're learning how to, they're not called wizards. They're called magicians. It has its own mythology and everything. But yeah, that's that. And then I turned it on to my friend Jared, and my friend Jared became obsessed as much as I did. And so that, when the next book in the series came out, both of us were like, we got it. And then we would read it and then talk about it. Like those are the books that I used to put on pre-order on Amazon. Like I pre-order it.
Nice.
Like I need it the second it comes out. Yeah. So I have a pretty deep history with the Magicians, and I have many feelings, but it was interesting revisiting the first book. Cause I was like, I think I have new feelings about the book than I did when I first read it. So I was like, oh, okay, this is new. And I think that comes with age.
Yeah, totally. You see characters from very different perspectives, depending on how your life experience is going.
Yes. So, But yeah, and then watching the television series, I will say, interesting.
In not a good way, I could see from your face.
Well, okay. I mean, it's like here are my thoughts. Like, I know you have questions prepared, but and we can talk about them. But I think they're two different things. To me, when I was watching the series, I went, I don't even know if you can say it's based on. And I say that only because I know it's based on, and they did take some of the quotes from the book and put it into the TV series, and they have virtually the same names, and the exception of some, but there's new characters that weren't in the books. They kind of set it up to kind of almost be like a Lost style mystery that they had to solve. And they did that from the get-go. And I say Lost because Lost had that serial feel, which is what the Magicians kind of had. So I was like, and there was some stuff all of a sudden there's sex magic and all this other stuff. And I was like, and I don't want to say oh, I didn't enjoy the first season. I did. I could watch and I could see why, my little brother has never read the Magicians series, but has watched the entire television show and really likes television show. And I can see why people would like it. And I went, okay. And so that's my preliminary thoughts. Cause I was like, they're just two separate, to me, they're two separate things. It's very hard for me to even they're just two separate things.
And I was thinking about it while I was watching the show, because when you're adapting a book into a film or a television series, there are going to be inherent changes you make just for the medium. Mm-hmm. And I was thinking about it. This is the first TV show adaptation we've tackled on the show, and I was thinking, okay, well, Julia is not a storyline that's followed in the book.
Correct.
Really.
Correct.
So, but they need for this TV show, I think, I mean, I am not a TV writer, but they need that B storyline.
Well, the funny thing is that they get that B storyline, and I think I told you this when we were doing our preliminary research on the season. Her B storyline is the storyline in the second book. So in the second book, they introduce Julia as a narrative point. So like in the second book, they switch off between who's the lead of each chapter. So in the second book, we've got Quentin being the lead and then Julia being the lead of the chapter. So we're switching off. So you actually learn of Julia's history in the second book, which they brought into the first season.
Interesting.
Which I was like, because what happened to her in the first season was happening during the entire time that Quentin was at Breakbills in the first book. So
gotcha.
So I was like, and hers was actually probably the closest storyline that they stayed to, with the exception of the addition of the character of Marina, who was not a character in the books at all.
So I think, because to our listeners, I have only watched season 1 and I have only read book 1. Mm-hmm. Matt has watched, have you watched further than season 1 of the show?
No, I just did season 1.
Okay. Matt has read all the books, only watched season 1. But what's interesting is I wonder if like first time readers like myself who would like be like, okay, well, I read the book, now I'm going to watch a show. Now everything's going to be spoiled a little bit.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. True. Absolutely.
Fascinating. Absolutely. Okay. I'm really happy we have these two different perspectives, because I'm coming from a very newbie point of view. Right. And you're not. So I'm happy you corrected me on the B storyline thing. So that's a thing that actually happens in the books.
Oh yeah. I mean, with some difference. And like the character of Katie does not exist in the books.
Okay, good. I'm glad you said that, because I'm like, who is this Katie person? It's almost as if they needed a device to connect the two storylines.
Yeah, because you've read the book now, because like Julia all of a sudden shows up at the end of book 1 being held in the air by Elliot and Janet, who is supposed to be Margot in the television series.
Yeah. I don't know why they changed her name.
Neither do I. Someone said they didn't want it to confuse the J names, and I'm like, Julia and Janet, it's really not that hard. But okay. And Julia's always in the...
so mad.
I don't see the problem. But yeah, so like I think they were trying to connect it, but like Katie, because like this is the thing, like sometimes they don't tell you what their last names are. So like Katie's last name is Katie Orloff Diaz. So I went, oh, Orloff, you mean like Amanda Orloff, who gets her head bitten off by the beast in the book?
In the classroom, yeah, which doesn't happen.
So it's like, then what the heck is she doing here?
That's such an interesting choice, that the teacher dies and the dean gets his eyes taken out.
Yeah.
Instead of Amanda dying. And like, I don't know, in the books, that scene felt like it was like this thing that like Quentin kind of sort of did on accident.
Yeah.
And no one really talked about it, but they made it a huge plot point. And they made Alice's character a lot more, it's really like Alice is culpable. She's a very more like active participant trying to get her brother back.
Yeah, which I thought was a very interesting thing to do, and it was kind of too easy in the television series, like because I think within like the 3 episodes they figured out how to get the boy back, or like four episodes, which I was like, see, to me that could have been a whole season-long arc, her figuring out how to get her brother back.
Right, and I feel like they're probably going to show this in the second season, but in the book, she has this incredible arc of like always keeping a cap on her skill because she's embarrassed of being better than everyone. And she wants to be humble, but you see her really embrace her fucking mega power at the end, and it goes awry. But I feel like if she's already doing this fucking crazy magic, like bringing this guy back, that's like not beginner level shit. So I feel like that kind of throws off her arc a little bit.
Yeah, it was. They definitely adjusted the character of Alice for the television series. So like Alice in the book, there she's described as being very shy, and like you said, she keeps her cap on her magic, because she does know that her brother died and became a Niffin. Like she doesn't learn about that. She learns about it in this TV series, but in the book, she comes to Breakbills knowing what's happened. Well, no, she learns from Janet in the books. I forgot, but she knows something bad has happened. So she's almost like you said, she keeps her cap on her magic, and she works at it, even though she's very adept at it. You know, she was almost like the Magician series version of Hermione, kind of.
Yeah.
But then when she comes into her power at the end, which also is like, you know, which I thought, you know, it's such a big plot point for Alice to finally unleash herself at the end, and that she's creating all of this magic without even thinking about it, which is everything Mayakovsky talks about to everyone when they're at Breakbill South, and what takes Quentin a death to learn. Like Alice learns that immediately in the books, but like it takes something terrible happening to Quentin for him to go, that's what he meant.
Yeah.
So, and I think that was just kind of a disservice to Alice. Alice in the TV series, well, I do think the actress was doing a fine job.
Yeah, I think she was lovely.
Yeah. And she definitely was really adept at playing this new version of Alice, who had a little bit more confidence in herself and knew that she was good at magic and everything. Like, you know, it didn't take her that much time. You know, she's like, here's my phosphoromancy, changed her hand. She's like, boop. And then, you know, like, okay.
Yeah.
So she was very well aware and very, very smart. Like there was an edge to Alice in the television series that I didn't necessarily feel was in the books.
Right.
So it was just an adjustment of character, which I thought it still worked.
And I got the vibe, like, with a lot of what was going on with Alice, because she is such a principal character in both the book and the show. But, like, with a show format, you need a conflict to be solved in every episode, in addition to the long-term conflict that goes on through the entire season. Mm-hmm. So I think in the books, and you could totally disagree with this, I feel like it's told in Quentin's perspective so much, and a lot of it's internal, because that's how books are by nature. And I feel like it lacked the conflict that TV shows need, because you're just following him on his learning journey.
No, I agree completely with you, because as I was reading the book, because I remember watching the pilot of The Magicians when it first came out, and I remember going, no, I'm not watching this.
No, just no.
Just no. Because I was still in The Magician's book is perfect haze. So that's why I was happy I got to watch it. Because as I was rereading the book for this podcast and everything, I was going, yeah, turning this into a television series would have been really hard for a first season, because so much of I think half of the book is just Quentin going to Breakbills and
learning about this world.
And while there is stuff that happens, it was definitely more of a relationship drama in the first half of the book, which is learning how to be a magician, learning how to make new friends, learning about, because I believe Quentin is a virgin when he goes to Breakbills in the books, because he's supposed to be 17 in the TV series.
It's very different in the books.
Yeah, in the TV series, they're all grad students, so they're all over the age of 21 and all this stuff. So like Quentin and Alice are both like new to everything. So it was like Quentin and Alice were discovering everything along, even with these other even these other characters who were more worldly, like Elliot and Janet. And so it was definitely different. The first half of the book would have been a whole different first season if they did the first half of the book like they were going to, like following the book.
Maybe I missed this in my reading the book for the first time. The mental institution seemed to me to be a bigger presence in the show.
There is no mental institution.
Okay, I was just checking. I'm like, did I miss something here?
No, there's no mental institution. There's none. Which
it was a huge presence in the series. Okay, I'm not crazy.
No, you're not crazy.
Huge presence in the TV series, and I'm curious as to why you think that they made that choice.
Well,
to make him edgier?
No, I think it was probably, again, a discussion of Quentin in the book. Because Quentin, this is where I say, okay, so this is because like one of your questions, I was like reading one of your questions, like what does the Magicians have that other books have? So like Quentin is kind of like Holden Caulfield from J.D. Salinger's Catcher in the Rye. So like Holden Caulfield is this kid who is from the upper crust of life, is extremely smart, extremely whatever, but he has this malaise about him. And you reading Catcher in the Rye.
I love when people say malaise. What a great word. Good job, Matt.
Thank you. For those of you who are not paying attention, I am bowing. But like Holden Caulfield has this malaise about him in Catcher in the Rye, and Quentin has that too. It's the whole thing. He's always waiting for his life to begin. He keeps saying, and he consciously says that to us as we're reading the book, The Magicians. Like when he found Breakbills, it was like his life began, but then Breakbills ended. And it was like, when he fell in love with Alice, it's like, oh, now his life is beginning. And Alice even calls him out on this when they go to the Netherlands for the first time. You're always waiting for something else to open the door to your next life.
Like when something isn't new anymore, like they were very much in love with each other. And, when all relationships leave the honeymoon stage at some point. And so when it wasn't necessarily that exciting to him anymore, he felt that malaise again.
Yeah.
And maybe the mental institution was like their way of putting a name to it.
Yes, because I do think, and especially I think because they made him older. So when you're in that malaise and you're in your 21 and you're 20 or 21, 22, when you're graduating college and you are thinking about grad school, especially if you're going right from the end of college to grad school and you're not taking like years off to figure out your life. I was like, I would definitely say, yeah, because I felt that. I remember at the end of college for me, I told one of my professors the following year, I came back and visited him and I said, oh yeah, I was depressed all of senior year. He was like, you were? Yeah. I said, yeah. And I probably go to see somebody, I probably wouldn't have been clinical, but I was definitely in that where I got senioritis bad. I didn't want to do anything. And me, me not wanting to do anything is like
strange.
So I wanted to do nothing. I had to force myself a lot of senior year to continue to do things because everything had just caught up with me where I was like, I'm so done. I'm just done. I'm just tired. I had been going for years at that point. And, going to college, and if you're going to college for acting and stuff, it's just so much. And you're just like, I'm just done. Yeah. And so I can understand why they're like, it would be depression. And I think they were trying to also say that Quentin probably was suicidal. Which I never got to that point. I was just, so malaise.
Malaise.
So yeah, I think that was their way of kind of also addressing mental health, because then we see Julia go to rehab.
Yeah.
Addressing drug addiction. So, and I think
does that happen in book 2?
No, not to my knowledge.
Interesting.
Not to my knowledge. She does do, the hedge witches, and then she goes to sit from safe house to safe house. Like there's no specific characters except for Free Trader Beowulf, the group that she gets involved in. And they do try to summon a god, and they do try to summon a god, which they do. And she does.
It goes badly.
And what happened to her in the TV series happens in the book. It's just like,
yeah,
you're like, oh,
that was
God.
really gnarly.
Yeah. It was, yeah.
Very good. Very good. What do you think of the casting choices that they made?
Okay. I thought Hale Appleman as Elliot was actually kind of perfect.
That's probably my favorite casting choice. I mean, I thought all the actors were very good.
Yes, I
but
agree.
Hale Appleman really stands out to me as Elliot. He made Elliot seem better than the Elliot I imagined in my mind when I was reading the book.
Yeah, yes. I think he was able to capture everything that was happening to Elliot in the books, but just to a human degree. And so I thought Hale Appleman was doing fantastic work as Elliot, and you could hear the voice, like the way he even said it. It was like, I was like, yeah, you're Elliot from Go.
he really justified every single thing that was happening to his character. And it justified from a very human perspective.
Yes. I mean, even when he was doing his drugs at the end of the season, they were giving him his self-medication with all the different drugs. You're like, you can see why, because of something he had to do, that he had to do for the better for everybody. But it was hard for him because it was going against his own heart and his own soul. So everything.
I think because he has such a huge personality, it's really easy to kind of, as an actor, maybe make that a caricature. Mm-hmm. And he really made him a person.
Mm-hmm. I agree. So I think Hale Appleman as Elliot was great. And I think everyone else, like you said, all the actors were really good on the show. I actually really enjoyed every single one of them. But I think they adjusted the characters for the television show. I think Elliot was probably the only character that wasn't really adjusted. Like they just took Elliot and went, here's Elliot. Because like even Margot, who's Janet in the books, you know, Margot seemed less biting. Like Janet in the books is so aggressive.
Yeah.
In the books.
Mean-spirited person.
Mean-spirited, you know, and I also thought that was very telling, you know, like she's very mean-spirited, but she always cared about keeping the group together. Like they mentioned that in when they're in Fillory, and when Richard, the character of Richard in the book, not in the series, decides he's not going to go with them. And she's like, what the hell? We came here together. We stay together. Like Janet has this weird loyalty, even though she will, and she's aggressive and she's mean-spirited and she's selfish in the books. But it's very different. She in the series, again, the actress was great, but it's just different. It was almost like she was another half of Elliot. Like the two of them went together, and she did have her own storylines, and she did feel deeply. You could see she felt deeply. But it wasn't the same. You know, it just wasn't the same. And we already talked about Alice, Olivia. I can't remember her act.
Olivia Taylor-Dudley.
Olivia, I was like, I knew Dudley was in there somewhere. I was like, Olivia Taylor-Dudley. Again, thought she did a great job. It was a different Alice. There was more drive to this Alice.
And I feel like a lot of that probably had to do with how she was written.
I agree. And I think they wanted to give Alice this more, because she was a bit of a wallflower in the books. And in
they
this,
used the term mousy,
she was driven.
A lot when describing her.
Yeah, she came to break bills. She had to find her way in. She found her way in. She's finding her brother. I'm finding my brother. I'm doing my work. I'm doing this. I'm doing this. I'm doing this. So it was definitely more driven Alice. And Quentin, I thought, this is what I thought about Quentin. Jason Ralph, great job. I've seen him do other stuff.
He's a very good actor.
Great actor. But I thought they had adopted the behavior of Josh in the book and gave it to Quentin in the series. Where he was, because Quentin in the book, they said Quentin had to work at it to create his magic, but he was good at it. Like he was good at it. But yet
they made him into a fool on the TV series. Literally. His intelligence level, like I'm not saying he was dumb on the show, but his intelligence is so highlighted in the book series. But on the show, they literally call him by the end the Fool.
Yep.
In The Witch and the Fool.
Yep.
Which was such an interesting change.
And I would love to ask them why, because like Josh Hoberman in the book, you know, they say Josh is capable of great power in the book, but is an imprecise spellcaster. Like not all of his spells work. When they work, they're great, but when they don't, they just don't, you know? Yeah. And Quentin wasn't that. Quentin was a highly intelligent guy who could do calculus. He said, I think they said by like the age of 11, he was doing calculus in the book. And they said, while Quentin is not as gifted or as innately talented at magic, like let's say Alice or Elliot in the books, Quentin was still good at casting magic. Like he could still,
and he would try to outwork them so he could keep up.
Right. So, you know, and so it was interesting. Like you almost never see Quentin cast in the show. It was very, very rarely did we see Quentin cast a spell. everyone else was casting. I mean, and when the funny thing is that the only time that Quentin's like magic seemed to work was when the chips were down and he wasn't thinking about it.
Like at the Welters match.
Like at the Welters match, even when he all of a sudden like was able to trap Alice's brother in the Niffin box, you know, because he was thrown into it and I have to save her. So it was, it was when he wasn't or when he hit Penny with that first burst of battle magic because he saw Katie do it and he just mimicked the hands. And I can see that's why I said I feel like they took Josh's character from the book and gave it to Quentin. And so I was like, okay, this is a different Quentin altogether.
Yeah. Really interesting. I thought the casting was good, but they wrote the characters very differently.
Yeah.
My favorite part of the book was when they went to Breakbill South.
Oh yeah, Breakbill South.
So when they started turning into geese, I got really excited.
Yeah.
I was so excited. But I was kind of bummed not to see the final exam portion.
I was okay. This was I was too, because it's the final exam in the book is such an important moment for both Alice and for Quentin, because one, it gives them something else that they can share. Yeah. As a couple, and not just the fact that they had sex as foxes. But it gives them something they can share because they're the only two people that do it. Plus, it proves to Quentin, because Quentin's always second guessing himself, as a spellcaster, as a whatever, he's always second guessing himself, even though he works very hard at it. He's always second guessing himself, and he was able to achieve something in the final exam. So, and I for a split second, when Mayakovsky, it's the end of the episode about Breakbill South, Mayakovsky's created the portal and everyone's walking back to Breakbills. For a split second, I was like, he's going to close the portal and he's going to make them run to the South Pole. Like, I was saying that to my head. I was like, come on. Yeah. And then he doesn't. He just gives them some words of wisdom. I was like, no, I want to see the final exam. Yeah. But it didn't fit the narrative that they were trying to create. Because again, they were trying to create, a series that would continue, because the show went on for 5 seasons. And they were I see whether they were trying to create a series. Yeah, so I wanted the final exam too. I was like, come on, give me the final exam.
Totally. Were there any other changes in storyline that were made that really stood out to you?
Oh, yeah. And I understand why they did this, but I don't know if I liked it or not. So they introduced Jane Chatwin in the first scene of the series. Mm-hmm. And she's talking to Dean Fogg, and she's telling them, you need to get them prepared. Yeah. And I didn't like that they set that up, because then we already knew what we were getting into. See, I remember when I remember reading the first time I read The Magicians, and Alice died. She dies in the book, guys. She didn't die in the first season of the show, so just letting everybody know. But she dies. She dies in the book. She becomes a Niffin, and you see Quentin see her become that, and you die with Alice and with Quentin. You die, and I just remember going, and you're kind of raw because you're like, you don't know what the heck, she became the thing she didn't want to become. And then you learn after that, when he's at the retreat, that this was the best outcome. And you're like, what do you mean this was the best outcome? And then you learn about the time magic that has been going on for ages. And you go, and to me, that's when my mind went, you've got to be kidding me. Yeah. So they've done this before? What? Yeah. And the entire season, they kept joking about it. They kept joking about, like, this time, that the dean was aware of it, this time, what did we change this time? What did you change this time? Which I thought didn't pay off as well, because it's, again, almost like the reason why the first season of Lost is so well done is because all you know about the first season of Lost, and I'm a huge Lost fan, so come at me, people. But the reason you love the first, even talk about like the first episode of Lost. First episode of Lost is a plane crash. Yeah. That's it. It's a plane crash. We don't know anything else. That's it. we learn the rest of it bits and bits as we go on through each episode. And I thought from the beginning they set up the audience already knowing that someone already knows what's going to happen in the future. And I was just like, I don't know if I like that. And that was happening because they even made a joke about Janet's name being changed to Margot when they go to the library. And she says, "Hi, I'm Margot." Or she says, "Janet." The librarian says, "Janet." And Margot goes, "It's Margot." And she goes, "This time." And I was just like,
wait, I missed that part.
Oh, yeah. So when they're in the Netherlands.
In the series.
In the television series.
Does her book say Janet or Margot?
It says Margot. Well, I don't know. No, wait. I don't think they found her book.
Okay.
But like when they're in the Netherlands and Quentin goes back through the fountain, and the four of them, Penny, Alice, Elliot, and Margot, are stuck in the Netherlands, and then Penny takes them to the library where they can be hidden.
Yeah.
The librarian says, "Penny, Alice, Elliot, Janet, you're late." And Margot responds, "It's Margot." And the librarian goes, "This time."
There was a lot of winking at the audience.
Yeah.
In that moment. And then another one that I caught was a kind of a self-aware moment where they're in Quentin's dream when Alice and Margot are making out. And they're like, "If you would just shut up and give us another couple of minutes, we would pass the Bechdel test."
I really like that line.
It was really funny, but I'm like, they're winking at the audience.
Yeah, it was a lot of tongue in cheek at the audience and a lot of use of time. They were very aware of I don't know if I don't want to say explaining, but they were very aware that time was playing a big portion in the first season, which it does in the first book. We just are not aware that it does until the end. And that's what I liked, is that I wasn't aware that time was a factor until we got to the end. And when you reread the books, you can see, like, because Quentin asks Dean Fogg about Jane in the beginning, that woman who gave me the Fillory book. And he's like, "Yes, on a special case." Like, Dean, like, "I already know it's Jane Chatwin. I know who she is. She's screwing around with shit. So, let her do what she wants, But it was very interesting. I didn't necessarily dislike it, but I didn't think they needed to be as upfront with it. And the changes to the character of Penny was also interesting.
Yeah. Is Penny's story unfold in the later books? Because we see a lot more of Penny, which I really like his character on the show, but so I'm not anti that at all. Yeah. But yeah, they really created a storyline around him.
They did, because I think it was, again, they're trying to create a television series to which they can keep. And I understand what they're doing, but I also yes, that sound just happened.
What was that again?
I don't know if I recreate it. But I think, to me, stakes and reality of a show get better when there is chances for loss, or when loss is supposed to happen. It should happen. So, with a lot of TV shows, they try to keep their characters that people have fallen in love with. Like, I agree. I liked Penny's storyline in season 1, and they were definitely using Penny a lot more. But Penny is there from season 1 to season 5. Penny doesn't go anywhere on the television series. Penny virtually disappears for the rest of the books.
Until the end. Yeah.
Until the end, and in the other 2 books. Like,
and he disappears again. That sucks. Okay.
Penny only shows up when Quentin is in the Netherlands, in which he goes to almost once a book, and Penny's always there. So,
and he was like a very like smooth talking, very charming, but also like love to hate him kind of bad boy with a sensitive side. And he had this whole relationship with Katie, but in the books, A, there's no Katie, and B, he's kind of just he's a loner.
He's a loner he's the quintessential loner, that he's the loner that is alone because he thinks he needs to be alone, but like they said, actually does need friends.
Yeah.
he's a punk. Like he says, he has the mohawk. He was very specific in the books. He's got the mohawk. He's got the white t-shirt with the leather over him, whatever. Like I've got tats. He's tatted up everywhere in the book because he's trying to be this thing that he thinks he's supposed to be. So,
Yeah.
But I like what they did. Like I liked what they created with Penny, but I just think there has to be room for characters to die or leave. And this is why I champion shows like Friday Night Lights, which is not a fantasy show. But when the kids graduated high school, they left the show. They're like, You're gone because you're no longer.
Or like Game of Thrones. People would just die.
It's like your life in the story is now done. Bye-bye. Goodbye.
This very much like kept to the format of like, we're going to create this group of friends that love each other and they're going to tackle evil together in every single episode.
Yeah. And you could tell that. And you're just like, all right, which I guess if that's what I wanted to see all the time, I would see that. But I've grown to really enjoy the more real aspects of that. Like with Game of Thrones, like if a character you love dies, you're like, God, I hate that you're dead, but I completely...
When Ned Stark fucking died, I lost my mind. I actually stopped watching the series after that happened, and then I had to come back to it like a year and a half later.
And see, I was naive at that point when I watched the first season of Game of Thrones because Ned died, and I went, oh, well, he's going to be back.
Yeah.
Because in my head, I went...
It's built into your head that that's how it's supposed to be.
Yeah, so I was like, he's your lead, and it's played by the most recognizable name you have on the show, because if you're in entertainment, you're like, you didn't know anybody else. Game of Thrones made everybody else.
How do you kill Sean Bean immediately?
You killed Sean Bean in the penultimate episode of the season, and plus he's the lead character. Oh, someone's gonna do some witchy voodoo. He's gonna be coming back at the end of the next episode. We're gonna be fine. That's where my head went.
Yeah, me too.
And then he doesn't, and then you appreciate it. Because then again, it's not that the magician's storytelling is bad. It's not. It's good storytelling. But it's like I like to have the gut wrenching deaths sometimes. I'd like to have the wind knocked out of you because you didn't see it coming, and you're just like, oh. Or when a character has to leave because they've grown up or they whatever. You're like, no, I want that. I tell people, it's like, I'm a huge fan of crying. That's right. For everybody out there, huge fan of crying. I love watching a show or a movie and crying my eyes out. Like I purposely have seen Avengers Endgame so many times, and every time at the end of the movie, I am a basket case. And people and they ask me like, why do you keep watching this movie though? I'm like, because it's such a well done film that is important to live through that at the end, to see Tony die, to see everybody else have that reaction to him. It's like, it's so important and it kills me, but it is so important that I will live through the tears that many times.
It's the level of investment is addictive.
Yeah, and I think they kind of do a disservice when they're like, we're going to keep everybody around. And I'm like, no, everyone's up. Everyone can die at any time. Like it should be like written into their contract. You can die at any time, and we reserve the right to kill you. And that's saying,
I feel like soap operas, at least like with the lore of soap operas, right? Yeah. And I have a couple that I kind of enjoy watching here and there. I don't watch many regularly, but there are some that I really do appreciate. But that's kind of up for grabs that's the lore behind them, is like they could die at any time. Is it, because the actor got a different role on a different show, or they're just like looking to fire them? Like they have to continue the story somehow.
I just read that to this degree, All My Children during quarantine was doing like some kind of Entertainment Weekly, like, reunion special, and Katie McCain, who I believe was working on As the World Turns when I was there, Katie McCain said the reason that her character, she has an infamous death on All My Children, and I just learned about it. She dies from eating a pancake.
What?
Yeah, she dies from eating a pancake, and the reason she said she died is because
how? Poison or choking?
I have no idea. But she says the reason is because there was some kind of disagreement with the writer, and the writers were like, all right, you're dead now.
That's totally the lore behind it. It's like Joey Tribbiani on Friends. He got in an argument with the writers and they threw him down an elevator shaft.
Yep. I was like,
and filming, he's like trying not to go down the elevator.
It's so bad. It's so bad. They're like, nope, Drake, it's just you. They just want you. And I'm thinking to myself, this is so bad because you can see the brick. Like, what idiot walking in doesn't see the brick of the wall and go, maybe I shouldn't fall. But Drake falls.
He's literally like bracing himself to not do it.
It's just like, and the way he falls is like the worst way falling. It's just like leaning and flapping your arms.
So funny.
So it's just, what were we talking about with the magicians? I can't remember now.
Penny.
Penny. So yeah, Penny. I did like that they took Penny's hands.
Yeah.
I did like that they took Penny's hands. They kept that going.
I mean, I didn't like it, but they stuck to the book.
They stuck to the book. I think a lot of the stuff that I had maybe issues with was the sex magic, which I was just like, you have to come at the same time. And I was like, really? Yeah. We need sex magic now? Okay. Yeah. And then her having to drink Ember's semen. I was just like, that was
hard.
That was hard.
That was tough.
It was just hard. That's hard for anybody to watch. I'm just like, I can't, because originally Quentin was going to do it. And I was just like, oh God. Yeah. Okay. And I just thought unnecessary. Like I went unnecessary, because
it's just interesting thinking about like how, like this is done by the Sci-Fi Network, right?
Yeah.
Which I think the audiences are probably like the demographic for the show is people in their early 20s to mid 30s.
Yeah.
I would guess. I don't have the statistics in front of me, but if it were made by a different network,
oh yeah,
it's interesting thinking about what they might have not made that choice.
Yes, I agree, and I think because Sci-Fi is a cable network, but like it's not like HBO. Where if the Magicians were on HBO, there would have been a lot more sex. I'll say that right now.
Totally.
And like that threesome between Margot, Quentin, and Elliot would have been just full everything.
You would have seen everything.
You would have seen everything. Which to me, that was one thing that I thought they didn't address in the book, and they didn't really address it. In the first season, because I just went, that's interesting. Quentin thinks about it and realized that he kisses Elliot in the book, but then never talks about it, and Elliot never brings it up. And I go, and it seems like he did even more with Elliot in the TV show, and I just went, it's funny that they don't address that. Like, does Quentin think, did he enjoy it? Did he not enjoy it? Like, did it, what's the hit?
Is it kind of implied, just like the fluidity of the characters? It's interesting. It's
like I understand Janet and Elliot a little bit more because Janet in the books is in love with Elliot, and Elliot, I think, if he can get off, he'll get off, which is the character, which is also in the series. Mm-hmm. But the threesome I thought was kind of thrown in there a little bit hastily with and they used the emotion magic because they were on the emotion magic as they were out of their minds because their emotions were just running wild. And I was like, okay, that's one way, as opposed to Quentin blowing up his own life because he doesn't know what to do, which is what it is in the book.
Right. Well, and also, here, I don't know if this goes along with your argument, but I did notice in the book that Quentin's thoughts about Elliot are very kind of muddled in the book. He explores his thoughts on Elliot. Like, he talks about how I didn't know if I was jealous of him or if I wanted to be him. And his sort of admiration and love for Elliot is so expressed that, I don't know, in the series for me, in the show, when they had that scene, it kind of came out of left field.
Yep. Yeah, I agree.
In the books, it's like, oh, well, I understand because he feels one way or another about him.
There's such a bigger connection.
Sort of.
Yeah, there's such a bigger connection between Elliot and Quentin, I think, in the books.
Yeah.
Because Elliot is the first person Quentin meets when he gets to break bells before the exam. And he spends time with Elliot in the books, he spends time with Elliot before the semester starts. So really the first friend that Quentin makes in the magical world is Elliot. And then he lives with Elliot. Like, they live together in the cottage and all that stuff. And Elliot even says, you, like when they're in the Fillory, you need this as much as I do. You coming to Fillory, you need this as much as I do, because we were dying in the real world because we had no idea what to do with our lives.
Yeah.
And I think that Elliot probably deals with the same stuff that Quentin does. He just has a better cover.
Yeah. In addition to that, like, sex was further explored in the books.
Yeah.
Like that, like everyone was experimenting and finding themselves, and you know, there was like lots of partying and, you know, lots of alcohol and just lots of experimentation in the cottage house that it wasn't expressly explored on the show.
Yeah, it was definitely something that I kind of was just like, I think it could have been addressed a little bit more, you know. Not saying that I don't need Quentin to say that he's bi or whatever. I just would have been like, it seemed to, and also in the books, because I said in the books, I was like, he was always obsessed with the fact that he had sex with Janet. That, like, he had sex with Janet. And I remember, I forgot, and maybe I just never thought about it the other times that I read it. As I'm rereading, he says he wakes up, there's 3 naked people. And I went, holy shit. And this time I went, holy shit. Elliot was involved. And I had never remembered that. I had always knew, well, Quentin had sex with Janet. That's what blew up that thing. But I went, no, wait a second. Elliot's there. That means, did he do something with Elliot too? Oh.
Yeah.
And I just went, that's even worse, because now he did something with 2 people to Alice. It's not, but even Alice only says in the books, you had sex with her. It had to be her. It's not even that she's.
But in the show, she does acknowledge you had sex with 2 other people.
Yes, in the show, she does acknowledge it. In the TV series, she acknowledges. So it's very interesting, because in the book, it's always about the fact that he had sex with Janet. So then, to me, I'd be like, that's very interesting. Why is she not upset with him having sex with Elliot, if he had sex with Elliot? And
it is ironic that they did that. Like, they acknowledged his sex with Elliot more in the show, but they didn't really build that relationship in that way as much as they did in the books. But in the books, it kind of ignored the sex with Elliot.
Yeah, I know. It's so interesting. Elliot's and Quentin's relationship is it's very bromance in a way. And I don't know what happens in the later seasons. And the funny thing is, when you talk to me about like fan fiction, because I never read fan fiction, you know, no offense to people who write fan fiction. I was like, I just never read it, mostly because I don't want my ideas of what's happening getting ruined. But I was like, okay, for the purposes of this podcast,
Have you ever read any fan fiction?
No. But for the purposes of this for the purpose of this podcast, I was like, I'm going to go look up some fan fiction for the Magicians. And almost all of the fan fiction was everyone shipping Quentin and Elliot. Everyone.
That's so funny. That makes sense, honestly, because they really tee it up in the books.
Yeah.
And that because they don't explore it, they just do the Janet exploration. People just are wanting to explore it more for themselves.
Yep. So it was. And I would say, and I think specifically with what they did in the TV show, I was like, I can see Elliot and Quentin getting together. Like, I can see it, and I would be okay with it. Like, I wouldn't be like, oh my God, you're doing a disservice to the book or whatever. I wouldn't be upset. I was like, no, I can see it.
They have a genuine connection.
Yeah. And
it reminds me, the fan fiction that you're talking about reminds me of the Draco and Harry fan fiction that I come across sometimes.
Oh, what fan fiction is this?
There's so much Harry Potter fan fiction explores like a love-hate relationship between Harry and Draco, and they explore a love portion.
That's kind of perfect.
Like, they hate each other so much it has to be rooted in like a love for each other.
Oh, but see, and that is true. Like, hate and there's it's a line from something. I'm paraphrasing it poorly. Like the difference between like love and hate is like a knife's edge. Like that's how close it is. And I can't remember what it's a quote from, whatever. And for whoever I'm paraphrasing, I apologize. It's a beautiful quote.
I do that all the time.
But it's true though. I mean, like you even look at like, you know, the all of the great, you know, rom-com couples and in the will they won't they couples, with the exclusion of Ross and Rachel, because that's a whole different thing. But like the will they won't they, specifically like Cheers, I say like everyone. I just finished watching 30 Rock, and 30 Rock was like this whole Sam and everyone kept saying this whole Sam and Diane thing we have going on. I was like, yeah, Sam and Diane couldn't stand each other most of the time.
Yeah. Ron and Hermione.
Exactly. Perfect. It's like Hermione would probably like cut Ron's head off sometimes if she could.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's rooted in this that I can't stand you, but for some reason you still get me and I don't understand why, you know. And sometimes you have that genuine, like, you know, I do love you type deal. Like I do love you and you love me. Like I think like Harry and Ginny have more of that genuine romance, and that more of like, we don't just, it's not that we're two different fires, we'll push each other along type deal. And I think Ross and Rachel are more in that like Harry and Ginny area, where like Ron and Hermione are just like, you know, because the question is, you read the play, I'm assuming, yes? You read the Harry Potter
Cursed Child? Oh yeah. I actually went to go see it in London.
I saw it in New York with the original London cast.
Oh, you did? Yeah. I want to see it again. I probably want to go to San Francisco to go see it again.
I loved it. But I love that in one of the timelines, Ron and Hermione don't get together. I was like, that's because that's true. It could happen. Ron could have said one too many things and Hermione would have been like, fuck off.
Have you read Constellations?
Yes. The Nick Payne play?
Yeah. Yeah. That reminds me of Constellations.
Constellations, I saw it on Broadway too.
I did too. Did you see it at the Geffen?
I didn't see it at the Geffen.
Technically not Broadway.
I didn't see it at the Geffen. Sort of. I saw it on Broadway with Ruth Wilson, the great Ruth Wilson, and Jake Gyllenhaal. And it was the first time I saw Jake Gyllenhaal.
Oh, with Jake Gyllenhaal. Wow.
First time I saw Jake Gyllenhaal on stage. And Jake Gyllenhaal is a fantastic actor, but watching him on stage is just another treat because he really is fantastic. And I just remember sitting there watching it. I was at because it was produced by Manhattan Theater Club. I was at the Samuel Friedman, sitting in the back. It was such an interesting set because it's not really a set. It just had like these balloons up there on the top. I don't know how it was in the Geffen, but they had like these balloons that were up top. And
no balloons at the Geffen.
Yeah. Oh, so yeah, there we go. I couldn't even explain what the set is, so I'm not going to try. But it was just interesting watching Constellations to see the so many iterations, which kind of again weaves into like what the magicians were going through. There's so many different iterations of these things happening, you know, so many different worlds, so many different timelines, so many different whatever. And I thought Constellations did that so beautifully by saying this is the individual timelines. Like one word can change something. Here, you know how to kiss your own elbow? Like that's how the show begins. Like kiss your own elbow. You're like,
it's so charming. Wait, what did they do with the balloons? How did they differentiate between the storylines?
So they used, I think they had the balloons because like sometimes it was the birthday, but I say balloons, like it looked like balloons. It was like these white balls that were at the top of the stage. Yeah. And they had the strings hanging from them. So every time that they would change the circumstance, like there would be lights going off in the white bulbs, almost white bulb balloons, almost like it was like a photo, like a different photo, and resetting. And they definitely used a lot with blocking, like just in the first scene. Like the first scene, I think is redone 4 or 5 times, the whole kiss your elbow thing. And they would reset back to their beginning starting points. They would reset back to their starting points. Every single time the flashes would happen, they'd reset back to the beginning of the play. And I had read Constellations before I even saw it, I'm pretty sure. I think I read it and I was just like, this is a wonderful play. And so seeing it done was...
It was, I saw it with Jennifer Goodwin and Alan Leach at the Geffen. And so good. And what they would do is that it was lights. There were no like balloon things, but the lights would just change the entire background, and the set was pretty bare. And they would do they'd like rewind and like restart the I think exactly what you're saying. They'd restart the blocking, but the whole like background would just change. It would be bold colors. Like one would be a pink, one would be a blue. One, it would all be different.
Yeah, I think
depending on the storyline.
Such a great play. So if any of you haven't read Constellations, it's by Nick Payne.
It's beautiful.
Go out, get it. It's a beautiful love story. There's a beautiful scene in the middle of it. I'm not gonna say I can't. It'll ruin everything, but it is beautiful. It is absolutely beautiful. Nick Payne, great writer.
It feels like we just went on a tangent, but also technically not an adaptation, but I'd say like putting anything on stage from written word, I guess.
Yeah. And I mean, it does tie it back into the Magicians because the whole use of time. I mean, the Magicians, that's the whole purpose of the first season. I don't even know what happens in the second season because I didn't want to continue. But I do know that the Beast is a character throughout all of the second season. Martin Chatwin is a character throughout all of the second season. So I'm like, so they don't kill him right away. So I'm like, okay, so when does he die? Like I'm going in, who kills him? Because Alice is supposed to kill him by becoming a Niffin, and then Alice is supposed to be gone. She's supposed to be gone. But then the character of Alice is still there for all 5 seasons. So I was just like, okay, so they just kind of created their own thing. All right, cool. It's still a good show.
I enjoyed it.
I did. I definitely enjoyed it. I remember thinking to myself, I'm enjoying this a lot more than I thought I would.
Yeah. Because the first time you saw it, you're like, no.
Exactly.
Like now that Pam asked me to be on the podcast, I have to watch it now.
Yeah, because if you had not asked me, it would have been like, because even this just goes to show you how much, because Netflix gives you the percentage of like likelihood of you watching your television show or movie. 64%. It was way low because like every British show that like pops up on Netflix, you're like, oh, 80 to 98%. I'm like, because I'll probably watch it. But Magicians was 64, and I was like, yeah, that's accurate.
That's so funny. Now your whole Netflix catered recommendations are going to shift. I'm sorry.
Only if I rate it. I'm not going to rate it. I'm not going to tell them I like it or not. It's fine. It's fine. Because, I may go back to it. I just remember going, this is what I thought. If I never read the books, if I had never read the books and just watched the series, I probably would have liked the series a lot.
Yeah.
I probably would have been like, ooh, this is interesting. Ooh, this is cool. Ooh, there's magic, and it's a different type of magic because they use it just with their hands, and there's no wand.
I loved how they did that.
I thought it was great, and I know it was a thing. I remember reading in an interview about people that think it's called like finger tutting and doing all this stuff and learning how to. I was like, that's really cool, really really cool.
Did you try any of them?
I totally did because I'm.
You bet your ass. Like anytime I take a break from the show and I'd like go to the bathroom, see myself in the mirror, I'd like start doing hand motions.
I totally did. I was just like, what? I was like trying to do the battle magic thing. I was like, okay, roll and through. I was like, because I'm that guy. I was like, anything having to do with powers, I'm like, I'm there. I'm good.
I'm trying it.
I'm gonna do it. I was like, I want my wand. Someone give me my wand. I wanted to. So anyway, I probably would have really liked the series if I had never read the book. But I think when it comes to adaptations, what you experience first colors the other experience. So like had I watched the television show first and then read the books, I probably would have said I enjoy the television show more because I would have been accustomed to those characters. Because I remember specifically feeling that way with the movie of Chicago. Because, I grew up a huge musical theater nerd among every other nerd faction on the planet. And I never saw Chicago the musical. I knew the famous song from it, which is All That Jazz, but I never saw Chicago the musical on stage. So when they made Chicago into a movie, I remember going to the movie thinking, holy crap, this is brilliant. All of the songs are taking place in Roxy's head. And that was the concept and everything like what the characters are going through. I was like, wow, this is great. This is awesome. The music is fantastic because I had never heard all of the music from Chicago. And then I'm thinking, well, that must be what the stage show is like. Has to be what the stage show is like. So when I finally went to go see it in college, one parents' weekend, my mom got tickets for us, so we went. And I remember turning to my mom going, "Yeah, I like the movie better." because the stage show is it is good. Don't get me wrong, it's great, and it's Bob Fosse's choreography that's with Anne Reinking throwing it in there too. So, but it's not the same. Like, not every song is happening in Roxy's head. It's not from that standpoint. It's just the songs coming out of the book and whatever. And it's like, and it's all these characters tell. So I was like, yeah, I kind of like the concept of the movie better, I thought. And I remember walking out going, I've seen it. I don't need to go back.
Yeah.
And there are some people that are the opposite, but the musical, they're like, they'll go back and see it all the time. I went, yeah, I saw it. I don't need to go back. I'm happy I saw it, but I'm good.
My friend Alexa, who is a co-host on No One's Okay, she a few months ago did Chicago in Alaska for a theater company, and she said it was a bucket list show. What's a bucket list show for you?
I so many. Jersey Boys, only because I've now been called in like 3 different times for it.
It's going to happen, Matt.
And I just don't know what else to do. It's kind of where I am.
Just keep going. It's going to happen.
I was like, come on. I was like, I'm actually a Jersey Italian boy. Just give it to me.
I can't wait. I can't wait to fly over to see you in that.
But then Sunday in the Park with George, playing George Surratt. Les Mis, just because I think who doesn't want to sing that? Yeah. And if we talk about Shakespeare, just too many. I mean, too many. Yeah.
This is a hard question.
It's hard. I mean, because you probably have like 1,000 too. It's just one of those things where you're just like, oh God, I just want to do everything.
There are many things that are definitely bucket list items, but the big one, it's not so much a Broadway thing so much as it is role on a Sorkin show.
Yes.
Matt, I just really wish I wish like I was taping this so you guys could see the reaction I just got out of him. Lots of flailing.
I think one of the only other writers that I've seen, I'm pretty sure I've seen everything he's ever written. With the exclusion of the Farnsworth Invention, which was on Broadway and I didn't get to see it, but I did read the play.
Did you see Mockingbird yet?
No, I haven't seen that yet, but I will. When it comes, I mean, it's not Broadway's closed right now. It'll come back. I mean, it was making $1 million a week, so it's not going anywhere. His language is music to me. I was like, it is music. And I remember I used to give notes to when we would be in class, when I would be in class with some people, and people were like, they picked up a Sorkin script and I was going, you're not hearing it right. And I would tell that to people and they're like, what do you mean I'm not hearing it right? I was like,
it does have a musicality, literally.
It does, because, and if you know Sorkin's history, Sorkin went to Syracuse University as a musical theater major. So I was like, you have to understand, he said it in interviews, he's writing music. Sorkin is writing music, and you're not hearing his music. You're trying to manipulate his lines to kind of fit the music you want to make. But I was like, it's one of those things. This is what I learned when I went to RADA. It was like, they said, Shakespeare's smarter than you. They said, Shakespeare's smarter than you. Don't try to reinvent it. He's already figured out.
Stay on the I-ams.
Yeah, he's already figured it out for you. He's giving you all the answers. And if you spend time with the piece, you kind of go there. Yeah, he has. Wow, he's giving me all the answers. And I think that kind of the same true is with Sorkin. Is like not saying that he doesn't give you the ability to breathe inside his pieces, but the way he writes, it's like boom, 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 boom. You can hear it. You can hear it. You can hear it. And when you can hear what you're ramping up for, and you're just like, it's there. Just trust it. And I was like, I'd cut off my other leg just to go.
I know. That's number one for me, honestly. Like, and people think to go with what you're saying, people think that if you just talk fast, you're fine. But no, there's a rhythm to the responsiveness to the other character.
Yeah, because he is writing. He's writing people talking to each other, and while it is fast and it's a lot of dialogue that has to be done, it is a character-based dialogue. It's and people are always like, what they say about Sorkin is writing highly intelligent people. And I said, yeah, he is writing highly intelligent people. And it's not wrong.
Is there something wrong with that?
And there's nothing wrong with him writing highly intelligent people. He is writing highly intelligent people. And everything I've seen, West Wing is to me like the end all be all of watching his stuff.
I'm rewatching it right now.
Oh, I'm in season 4 right now because I keep like a couple of series going so I can just kind of jump in every once in a while. My all-time favorite hour of television.
Two Cathedrals.
It's
so good. I show that to people when I try to make them understand. It's the most epic hour of television. I agree with you. When you told me that and I watched the episode like 10 times. I'm like, yeah, he's right.
The sheer power behind the words he wrote and the order he wrote them in. Oh, and I'll give you this quote in a second and you'll appreciate this. In the order he wrote them in and what Martin Sheen did in that scene in the church, especially when you know Martin Sheen's history. Like Martin Sheen is devout Catholic, and everything, mm-hmm. And when you see what he brought to that, and it's not done with malice. It's done softly by Martin Sheen, but the order of the words using Latin and everything, it's like, it's all character based. It's all whatever. And then it just,
he goes off on an improv, I think, with the Latin.
Oh,
right?
If he did,
if I know the lore correctly.
Oh, then I didn't know that. Then brilliant. Way to go, Sheen. But the fact that he puts out the cigarette at the end and then just says, "You get Hoynes," and I was like, damn.
Good.
But
rough.
But I think Sorkin is a little bit like this. So I was listening to a podcast yesterday for the Almeida Theatre in London, and Indira Varma, the great actress Indira Varma, was on it, and she was talking to Rupert Gould, the artistic director of Almeida, and she was talking about her early days in her career, and she was doing Pinter and all this stuff, and she was very nervous about doing this Pinter play with Pinter. Pinter was still alive. And he said to her, he's like, look, if you just say all of my words on the page and in the order I'll get them and that I've written them, you'll be which I kind of feel is the same for Sorkin. It's like,
I agree.
It's the same for Sorkin. If you go back and you watch West Wing, if you watch Sports Night, which if anyone hasn't seen Sports Night, please go see Sports Night.
It's weird watching, I love him and I watch Sports Night. It's weird seeing, like, the laugh track throws the rhythm off for me.
It does, which is why I'm very happy they got rid of it, because I was like, it's not a laugh track show. It's not. It's a half an hour comedy show without a laugh track, which is, but that, Sorkin was ahead of his time with that, because that was before we had mockumentaries and all of this stuff. So Sorkin was writing Sports Night before you were allowed to have a show without a laugh track, really. A half-hour show.
Sorkin wrote Newsroom before 2020.
I know. HBO needs to do a revival of Newsroom like now. And
that's my number one favorite end-all be-all show of all time. My favorite episode is Two Cathedrals, which is on the West Wing, obviously. But show as a whole, Newsroom for me.
Newsroom was just, like, it's Sorkin porn.
I know.
I mean, and I hope Sorkin's okay with me saying that, but it is. I just, the man is so gifted when it comes to, there's a you'll know this because it's in season 3 and it's between Don and Sloane. Mm-hmm. And it's the intercut scenes of them having the breakfast having the buffet about, I'm going to get the lobster. You get the lobster for me. And then he's just talking about, like,
I can't emphasize this more.
I can't emphasize this more. And then it's like the CMG. I bought stock in CMG, and you're like, bought stock in CMG. And it's like, before I tank that, and it's like, no, you're going to be on Vipassana and Shavasana. I'm just like, if you miss a beat, I'm just like, and the actors were great. Like, you had Olivia Munn, and you had why am I blanking on his name right now? Thomas Sadowski and Olivia Munn doing this beautifully written hysterical scene that just ends. It's long. It starts in the restaurant, then it's on the street talking about Vipassana and Shavasana and all of the stuff and yoga. And I think they even make a Yamaha joke about the piano. and then it ends with him telling Sloane, "I'm in love with you."
Yeah.
And I was like, guys, you don't get better than that.
No.
Unless you're doing Shakespeare. I was like, you just don't get better than that.
One of my favorite scenes of the series is also with Thomas Sadowski and Marcia Gay Harden.
Oh.
I know. I'm obsessed with Marcia Gay Harden. Since Meet Joe Black, I've been obsessed with Marcia Gay Harden. But there's a scene where she tells him that he's being sued by Jerry Dantana.
Yeah.
And he's like, the things you could be sued for and get away with it. Do you know what shower caps say? Fit one head. What does an iron say? Do not iron clothes while wearing them. And then he like goes on this whole tangent about how there needs to be tort reform and how Jerry Dantana sucks. And he's like, I want Jerry Dantana to iron his clothes while wearing them. Just like their banter, they bring it to life so beautifully.
They do. And I think, but like I said, and everything about it, but then it's so wonderful to see that, because I think some people may feel stifled by the fact that they have to have this pace about his work. But you see people like Marcia Gay Harden infuse so much character in that lawyer. And
I just described myself as liquid sex. What do you say?
And I just go, in my head, I'm going, yeah, you are. Right now, you are liquid
yes.
sex. But it's so, and I'm just, I think I'm just a fan of fast writing, because I even realized this. Another show that we share alike, that we both like, is Parks and Rec. And I remember I just recently finished rewatching Parks and Rec in this quarantine time, and
great show for this time right now.
Talk about another show that needs to have a reunion.
We need Leslie Knope.
We need Leslie Knope. Like, she should be running for president right now. They should do another episode, another season of Parks and Rec, and Leslie is running for president, and Leslie wins.
That and the emergency preparedness episode.
Yes, the emergency preparedness episode.
Like, she needs to be in charge.
Yeah. Everything about that show, I was watching this, I was just going, this is so timely. I mean, Parks and Rec needs to be on right now. But it was so interesting. You watch the first season, and it's well documented that the first season of Parks and Rec is just not good. And then
it's not good until Rob Lowe and Adam Scott show up, honestly.
Right. Yeah. But you can even start to see somewhat of the change in season 2. The writing starts to get fun. It starts to get quicker and faster and on pace. And then Rob Lowe and Adam Scott show up. And then we've got all these beautifully wonderful, full characters. And it's quick. Your mind has to work fast to do it. It's kind of like the same thing, like, watching Sorkin, listening to Sorkin, reading Shakespeare, acting Shakespeare. It's like, you can feel when your breaths happen. You can feel when your pauses should be taken. You can feel when you're on a, here I go. Mm-hmm. And it's, oh God, we need Leslie. Leslie, if you're out there.
We need Leslie. We need President Bartlett.
I've been saying that for years now. I was just like, every time that there's an election going on, I'm just like, it's really bad. It's really bad, because I sit there going, none of you guys are Bartlett. I compare them all to Bartlett, and I'm just like, this is a problem. He was fictional. He was a literal fictional character, and I'm comparing everybody to President Bartlett. I'm
like looking at The West Wing as escapism right now.
Oh, it is. It's complete escapism. But I think people should aspire to. I think people can aspire to that. Again, I think sometimes the level of discourse, people are like, well, we don't want to have that level of discourse because it may make us look what they accuse all the characters in West Wing to be, the elite, the upper elite, the over intellectualized, all that stuff.
Well, and that's such a discussed theme in his shows. It's like, what's so wrong with being or striving to be or being smart? Right.
Yeah, and that there is nothing wrong with it, and you can be that, and I think that's okay if that's something that fuels you. Again, I think it goes back to you if that's something that fuels you, that's part of you, that you enjoy doing that, then you should do it. And it's just God, we can be here for days for talking. We should have a whole Sorkin podcast.
We really should.
We should just watch an episode of Sorkin and be like, okay, we're going to talk about this.
We are going to talk about this as soon as we stop recording. You and I are going to have a discussion about this.
Okay, we should get back to the magicians.
Is there anything else that you would like to cover? We're both really excited right now. Is there anything else you would like to cover about the magician before we close?
I'm trying to think. Let me look at these questions that we had.
We jumped around, but I think we covered most of it. But if there's anything else that you're chomping at the bit at, let me know.
Oh, I loved this question, and I was like, I'm totally just going to throw this in because it actually was a great question. I was like, oh yeah, two great questions is like, do we think Quentin? What do we think of Quentin as a protagonist? And it was funny you asked that because I think this is where I changed with age. So, I read Magicians for the first time when I was 22 because I had just graduated. I had just graduated college and I turned and I think I bought it, relatively at the end of the summer. So probably around September of that year. So I was 22. So reading it, I was kind of like, yeah, dude, I get it. And that kind of feeling, because I think a lot of nerds and artists feel that way, where it's like, you're waiting for that thing that kind of is like, that will, especially if you have a very active imagination. Like I am waiting for the day that someone will tell me, Matt, you don't know this, but you are a mutant from X-Men. I'll be like, thank you. I've always known, but thank you. And it did happen to me once, and I'll explain that on a separate note. But
wait, what happened to you?
Okay. It was this show that was done when Marvel Superhero Island opened in Florida at Universal Studios. They didn't have an X-Men ride yet. They had an X-Men show. Yeah. And so you had to show up to watch the X-Men show. And what they did is they picked someone from the crowd to be a part of the X-Men show. So here we are. It was the five of us, me, my two brothers, my parents. And they of course knew my obsession with X-Men. So we had to go see the X-Men show. So we put it into the itinerary. So we're standing there and they come up and they ask me and like, do you want to be a part of the show? And I'm like, yes. and what I didn't know is like in the show, they bring me up onto the stage and because Professor X is using Cerebro and he senses a mutant out there. And I'm like, oh my God. So then I go up and I have to demonstrate my powers and I do. And it's telekinetic powers. And I'm just like, and they give me a little certificate that says you're a mutant. I'm like, I'm a fucking mutant.
That's amazing.
And my dad's like, they couldn't have picked a better kid. I was like, no, they couldn't have. They could not have picked a better kid. I was like, my dream came true. I was like, I could have died then. So, but I can see why I understood why Quentin was going through that when I was 22, because I was like, I can see it. I understand that. I've been there. You're looking for your people, and we all go through that. I think you and I have talked about this. You go through different points in your life, but never so much as like when you're leaving high school or leaving college for the first time, leaving these institutions that you're a part of, and you don't know what's going to happen, and you do kind of have that. All right, especially also because Quentin was never really challenged as a person up until Break Bills because he was so smart. He was never really challenged. Everything came so easily to him, and then he was at Break Bills, and it's like all of a sudden I'm being challenged, and so I understood it. As I was reading it again this time, I went, okay, you're a little bitch.
Yes. Yeah. He's also frustrating.
He is frustrating. And again, a lot of it is self-generated. And because when you hear about like Elliot's history about like, I was the only boy in a family of 4 boys that, didn't want to become sports or whatever and anything. And, he was probably closeted from his family. And Elliot like has a little bit more. There you go. We understand why Elliot is the way he is. Yeah. But even though Elliot kind of has the same general feeling that Quentin does, Elliot's able to figure out a mask and, figure it out. and Alice comes from terrible circumstances. She comes from a family, parents that don't even like each other, that don't even care about what she does,
Mm-hmm.
and now Quentin's parents don't really care about him because, but because they're so busy in love with each other. But yeah, I think he was probably a better protagonist in the series, but I felt like the series spread the wealth. Like Quentin wasn't the only protagonist in the series. Yeah. They were definitely trying to focus on Penny a lot more in this television series. They were definitely trying to focus on Alice and Julia. So I think to me, like if they had to say who are the four protagonists, it's probably Penny, Julia, Alice, and Quentin, and then Margot and Elliot are along, and Katie are along for the ride as supporting characters that have really good storylines, but are not necessarily your focus. Whereas really in the book, it's Quentin. Like here it is, here's Quentin. It's Quentin time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's why I think a lot of people in the second book really enjoyed the second book, because it wasn't just Quentin. We got to see Julia. And now Julia was another protagonist in the second book. And we got to see what the experience of Julia was, which was horrific, as we learned in the first season of the series. So, but yeah, so he's a little bitch. Sorry.
Yeah.
Bitch.
Yeah. I agree.
So.
Excellent.
Yeah. All in all, Magicians, I would recommend the TV series.
Yeah.
If that's part of this, but I'd recommend the book too, but I'd recommend the TV series. I would treat them separately.
Yeah. Go into it understanding that it's probably incredibly difficult to adapt a book, particularly like this, into a show. And they had to make some big artistic changes.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think like the Harry Potter series lended itself to being able to be made into movies, because it was basically like its own encapsulated episode in a book. It was always Harry dealing with something. So you could make that, oh great, just throw that into a movie. With the Magicians, even if they turned that into a movie, it still would have been hard, because like we said, the first half of the book is just so much about learning how to be a magician. Yeah. Which almost nothing happens, with the exception of him learning how to be a magician. And and I think Lev Grossman even realized that, but he tried to shorten how long he was there. It was like, oh, you're in first year, and now we're bumping you up to second year real quick, because he's trying to cut out a year. And then his fifth year is literally dedicated to one chapter. That's it. He's like, in fifth year, done.
Yeah.
And because he's like, I got to move this along. We got to get to Fillory. We're like, yeah, we got to get to Fillory, which is basically Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. So Narnia,
Harry Potter, Wizard of Oz.
Oh, they had Lord of the Rings.
Doctor Who, Lord of the Rings.
So many other, other fantasy type things being thrown in there, which I appreciated, because I was like, he's just taking everything he likes and throwing it together.
Yeah.
And then he makes it work, because in the next two books, I think the next two books, The Magician King, which is the second book, and The Magician's Land, which is the third and final book of this character's arc, he kind of branches out into his own mythology a little bit. Which he created it with the Magicians, but it was definitely like, oh, Harry Potter, ooh, this part of Lord of the Rings, ooh, this part of Narnia, ooh, this part of this, ooh, this, like he's just taking and kind of throwing it in and making his own. Boom. You're like, great, okay, cool. So, but I would recommend both. Just like we said, treat them separately. Then you don't need to read one to see the play. I mean, to the play, see the television show. However, if you're going to do Harry Potter, read the books first and then go.
100%. That's a non-negotiable. When people say, "Well, I've watched movies," no,
it's not the same.
You don't know Harry Potter.
It's not. They can be your entrance. I'll tell people, like, they can be your entrance, because that was me, because I wasn't an avid reader. So I remember specifically watching like Order of the Phoenix, the movie, which I know a lot of people don't like the movie, but I remember reading
the movie.
Order of the Phoenix is my favorite book. So I remember
Yeah.
watching Order of the Phoenix, the movie, and going, wow, I really want to know what happens next. And I had a copy of the Half-Blood Prince upstairs and then read Half-Blood Prince. And I was like, these books are off the chain. What have I been missing? So you have to read the books. You just have to read the books. And then you can watch the movies. Yeah. And then everyone has to watch and read Sorkin. Go ahead, people. We'll leave you with that. That's my sign off.
We'll leave you with that. That's our advice to you, listeners. Watch
and read Sorkin. Go ahead.
Are we good?
That's how I'm going to sign off. That's how I'm going to sign off everything.
And Sorkin.
Instead of good night and good luck, it's watch and read Sorkin.
Watch and read Sorkin. Good night.
Good night.
Matt, where can our listeners follow you?
They can follow me on my Instagram is my most active, and I believe I am Matt.Mancuso1. I'm going to just check that again because it changed. I have to
Literally everyone has to check.
I have to check because I think on Twitter I'm something else, and I'm just not as active on Twitter. I basically just retweet things on Twitter. So it's a lot of Phoebe Waller-Bridge that I retweet, and it's a lot of Rob McClure, the actor. But yeah, I'm Matt.Mancuso1 on Instagram, and so you can follow me on there. I've been posting a lot more only because my friend has been making me post a lot more. She's like, "Come on, do stuff on your thing." I'm like, "Okay, fine."
Are there any projects in particular that you're working on that you would like to promote to our listeners?
Yes. I'm in the middle of, I was inspired by Miss Portnoy here and some other friends of mine. I'm in the middle of, yeah, that's right. You're an inspiration.
That's sweet.
I'm in the middle of putting together a scripted podcast. So
woo! I'm so excited.
Yes. So it's fun. We are doing we've made our promo episode. My co-producer is editing it right now, actually, as we are making this episode. Because she sent me a message. She's like, "Can I edit some things?" I'm like, "Yeah, go ahead, have fun. Go to town. I trust you." But yeah, we're doing a scripted comedy podcast, and the idea came because you started doing No One's Okay, which is brilliant. If everyone hasn't listened to that yet,
so sweet. Thank you.
And then I had another friend who did another podcast, and I was like, "Well, what if we did something that was scripted and it's just geared to make people laugh? That's it." We just want people to laugh during this time. Take 15 minutes because each episode is about like 15 to 20 minutes. Just take that time to just go and just laugh. Really just allow yourself to laugh about these characters that are just they're out of this world, and that's my fault. But they really are. I love each and every single one of them. So we're in the middle of doing that, and that's the biggest project I think is coming up. I don't have anything else right now because so many things are closed. Mm-hmm. So that's the biggest project coming up, and we're hopefully going to do 7 episodes for the first season and then see what happens.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
Do you have a title yet?
It's called Agents Declassified.
Awesome. I can't wait. Yeah. You guys look out for that. It's 100% going to be awesome. If Matt's at the helm, it's guaranteed to be good.
Oh, you're too sweet.
It's true. Awesome. So, guys, thank you for listening. This was Based on an Adaptation podcast. I'm Pamela Portnoy. We'll have a new episode out to you every other Monday. You can find us on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play, and YouTube. And please don't forget to subscribe and leave a review. You can follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Based on Podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Also, just before I sign off, I just wanted to let you guys know, if you guys write fan fiction, please send it on over. If you have any fan art, fan fiction, you can email it to basedonshow@gmail.com, and I'd be happy to share it. Thank you again to Matt Mancuso for the time and insight and amazingness he brought to this episode. Matt Mancuso, you are amazing. Thank you to Tiffany Haymoff, Jackson Palmer, Claire Palmer, Maya Ashkenazi, Jordan Ross Weinhold, Jason Crow, and Soundworks Studios. Thanks, guys.
Bye. But I also, yes, that sound just happened.
What was that again?
I don't know if I recreated it.